Come now, all you mangy dogs. Swab the decks and hoist the sails. The guns on board be needing some proper manning. Pieces of 8 and a fine wench on your arm, if your work be not too shoddy. Be careful not to flounder too badly, though, or you may have to dance the hempen jig, as we see you to Davy Jones. Jeffy, my boy, on with the show.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are out there today listening to us via Enterprise Earth. We'd once again like to welcome everyone aboard the good ship we've christened the Robin Hood. Broadcasting as always from under heavily sprayed South Korean skies. This is episode 23 of Pirate Radio Podcasts. I'm your Chief Communications Officer, Jeffy Ryder. Now, since to refer to what we've got in store for you next as a great honor or huge thrill might come across as a little too much, let's just leave it at the level of an extreme and distinct pleasure. As the captain said to us just prior to coming on the air, he may not be important enough for Wikipedia, but in the eyes of the Robin Hood, will always be a man worthy of great respect and public gratitude. Today's special guest, speaker, author, former owner and publisher of Steam Shovel Press, the de facto godfather of postmodern parapolitics, Mr. Kenn Thomas, Hail Eris. Well, hallelujah. It looks like you finally actually made it. Kenn Thomas seeking permission to board the Robin Hood.
Arg? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I'm getting dropouts.
We can hear you, and we finally looks like managed to take care of all the technical issues we were having. We just got confirmation from you just a couple hours ago, actually, that you were going to be able to make it, and we'd be able to put this show together. So we've been kind of scrambling, all hands on deck, and but the crew rallied around the, with the confirmation that came through. The captain was happy to have that communication lines of communication established, and yeah, it's great to have you here finally. Welcome aboard. Although I must say, yeah, we have a little formality that I think we talked about off air just in the pre-interview phase. Now, just every guest that we have that comes to join us here, we just ask that they offer a little kind of pirate story, perhaps, or a little reference of some kind, a quip. But you could do a little sea shanty if you're into the singing and yeah. Musical mode. So go ahead. What do you got for us?
I'm not going to sing for you. You wouldn't want to hear that. But and this may be a little bit prosaic for your show. Maybe somebody else has used it. Because Robert Anton Wilson used to use this one all the time at around election time. It's a quote from William Butler Yeats. A statesman is an easy man. He tells his lies by rote. A journalist makes up his lies and crams them down your throat. So stay at home and drink your beer and let the neighbors vote.
It sounds like George Carlin might have read that one too at one point. That was kind of his.
It's a popular.
Yeah.
He said popular at election time.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to spend much time on that today or not, but we were hoping to get a little bit into the one of the issues that was brought up was the current state of JFK assassination research. I'm not sure if now's the time we want to really open up that can of worms, but that definitely we'll want to tackle that over the course of the 90-minute interview that we've got set out for us here today.
Point me direction and let me fire.
What? Come again?
I said point me in any direction and let me open fire.
All right.
We're gonna do JFK. Fine.
You betcha. Yeah. No, we're all geared up to go here for sure. We got I think more than enough questions for you. Hopefully, there's been a lot of excitement actually drummed up online too. A lot of just in the brief, we've only, like I said, had a very short time that we've actually been able to work with here as far as getting things ramped up and flying into the social media mode. We didn't hit Twitter yet, although we did manage to get on to minds.com and get a bit of word out there, and Facebook as well. So let's see. So hopefully we'll have a few people send in a couple questions as well, listeners. Now, Pirate Larry, I'm not sure if typically he's up there in the crow's nest. Larry, are you with us today?
Hi, Jeffy. I'm here. I'm here, and a wonderful thing it is to have Kenn Thomas with us to spill all the secrets about these UFOs that keep flying by my face up here.
Oh, you've seen a few of those, have you?
Oh yes, I've seen them, and I don't know whether they're ours or whether they're theirs. So this is a very serious question that I want to ask Mr. Thomas.
Well, let's hold on to that for a second. Make a mental note of that. Write it down. Whatever you want to do. But yeah, it's good that we've got you there. So anything else you want to add before you return to your duties?
Yeah, when are they going to release the JFK papers? That's what I want to know. They're supposed to do it sometime this year.
Great question, and I'd love to hear Ken's thoughts on that. I've got my own kind of take and opinion, but let's leave it to the we're here because he's the expert, and he's the guy that we want all the answers from today. So we'll talk to you later, Pirate Larry. Just make sure you stay tuned in to the show. All right?
Aye, sir. Over and out.
And looks like he is gone. There we go. So yeah, Pirate Larry up in the crow's nest, holding down that end of our operation. So so let's see what we got here. The way I was hoping to kind of get into things was, well, episode 23. Why don't we start there? Hail Discordia.
Hail Eris.
Yeah, Hail
Yes.
Eris. So
Yeah,
I mean, what's funny too is like what's amazing is just the total clusterfuck this whole thing has been, frankly, and the way it's like Cosmic Giggle, as one of my Minds colleagues referred to the whole thing just the other day. So big Cosmic Giggle.
So you had Adam go rightly on though, right? And then he's like the historian of the Discordians.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We wanted to press you a little bit on that today too, because I think that you do have some connection in that area. But yeah, Adam was. It was one of our first earlier interviews, and I feel really bad about it actually, because just the way it was conducted, and our co-host at the time. Well, he's dropped in rank since that time, but. Quartermaster Aaron was kind of helping out as on the co-host front, and well, he was actually we kind of let him kind of just try to see if he could kind of take things by the bull by the horns and steer the show along, but it just didn't pan out that way. Plus my own when I came in and what I had to contribute was just not. I found it quite. I was too much of a fanboy, is the way it kind of came across. And it was disorganized, disjointed, the whole bit. I think we've managed to up our game a little bit since then, though.
Well, I mean, if you were talking about Discordianism, you were talking about chaos, and everything that you just described sounds like it fit perfectly into that. So
absolutely. Well,
I don't see the problem.
Yeah,
I'm sure he appreciated that.
I was like so unprofessional. I felt embarrassed. I was like, oh geez, this is just terrible. The whole thing was a mess. And the thing is, like, of course, like I'm a big fan, of course, and of yours as well. But the thing is, when you're interviewing these people such as yourself or Adam, it's like that's just not the way you want to come across. So it's just
what you need to do. Inwardly, you need to chant the titles of one of Robert Anton Wilson's books. Oh. Everything is under control. Everything is under control.
Yeah.
And hypnotize yourself into believing that, because that's really what most people do.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, you're probably just sitting there naked too, aren't you? Doing your thing there, wherever, often saying that's another technique. Although I'm not sure what kind of an image that is. I'm not sure if I want to really go there right now. So, yeah. But it's all under control. No, but speaking of Robert Anton Wilson, there's actually there's a connection. I have one small kind of personal story to share. He was on Salt Spring Island at one point, I guess. He might have visited there a few times over the years, but one of our just a friend of mine at the time, I was at his visiting him on Salt Spring, and basically he told me, he's like, yeah, I remember Robert Anton Wilson sat right here, right in that chair, and that's where he was just a short while ago. So visiting his buddy Yuri in Salt Spring there. So, and do you know the story?
Should have been a
Go ahead.
Robert Anderson sat here. There should have been a plaque.
Well, you know the story. One of the earliest in Buddhism, one of the earliest, and we're going to go there today a little bit because we're going to talk a little bit about Naropa. You've got a bit of a history there, I guess, and
Sure.
as do I. I can come at that from a particular angle, but one of the first earliest symbols or icons used in the Buddhist tradition was the empty chair.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you know about that?
I know that fact. I don't know. I don't know any of the history of that. But yeah.
So that works for me on that level. I mean, and that's the whole thing. I was thinking about this in the lead up to the show today, kind of puttering around in the kitchen, putting coffee together and that sort of thing. And I was thinking of because I remember you mentioned to me through Facebook flashbacks, Larry's book, and I was listening to him actually read it. Timothy, Dr. Larry reading that himself.
That's right. He did an audio version of it.
Yeah,
right.
I didn't get the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was trying to get the book, but so yeah, and just like I could just these people are all here with us in spirit still. So I'm very much into non-dualism myself. The whole that Eastern concept that goes back. So time and space.
But that's a good way to deal with the chaos.
Yeah.
Empty your mind, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. There's enormous difference in different types of Buddhism. Of course, it's a global religion, and Zen Buddhism, the meditative state of Zen Buddhism, for instance, is completely different than the quiescent state of Hinayana Buddhism, and there's even Shinto Buddhism, which is kind of a regular religion that believes in gods and chants prayers. But Zen Buddhism is an awareness and an intention. It's almost the exact opposite of a meditative state in certain Buddhist traditions.
Interesting, yeah. And speaking of which, there's a real great picture of you. We're going to use that. We've included that in the with the slideshow. we've been totally. There's chaos here on every front. The slideshow has been sabotaged. Even the recording to the show, we were streaming, so we've got it recorded through YouTube, but who knows how that's going to turn out. Pirate Larry is there. Let's just check up on Larry and see if once again, if he's one of the things we asked him to do actually was, are you still with us there, Larry?
Hi, Jeffy. I'm still here.
Yeah, didn't
I'm
you
still
say
here up on the Crosby?
you got things set up there with you got a backup kind of a system set up there, so if we lose the feed on this end, you're going to be able to kind of cover us from where you are?
We're testing it out tonight. We're testing out the backup. Yeah.
See if this
So you say you're going to
test
put
it out
some
tonight.
up?
Go ahead, Ken.
We're going to see some images on YouTube.
Yeah. That's the thought. We didn't finish that. Just
Yeah, I got
basically.
YouTube up. I'm taking a look at it, seeing if it happens.
Well, I'm not sure if you got the live link or not, but it's.
I do.
I'll shoot.
That's
it up.
live.
We've had a few people asking for it. Go ahead.
The audio's coming through. I think I have it fine.
So you have the live YouTube stream?
Yeah, but I don't see any images yet.
Well, how about that? Isn't that something? So I had a slideshow set up. It should know. Here's the thing. What I was going to say regarding that was that your images are so tiny. They're just so tiny. It's like what happened? Like it didn't. This didn't. This wasn't the case with any of these prior shows. This wasn't, and suddenly from out of the blue, and I didn't change any of the settings or nothing here. So very peculiar. But
Where are you getting these images?
I'm sorry?
Where are you getting these images?
Oh, just off the web, mostly just a quick DuckDuckGo. That's my search engine of choice. I don't know why Alex Jones is always going on, just do a Google search. It's like, he's like Mr. Conspiracy Theory. It's like, everyone knows that Google's the Kraken, right? It's like, geez, man, why are you messing with the Kraken? Jeez, don't do DuckDuckGo or Start Page or something. But
you've had Alex Jones on your show?
Do you want me to pull your wooden leg and kind of string you along and lead you to believe, as if As if we did. No. I mean, would he come on our show? I don't know. We'll see. I guess if we become important enough, he might. That's probably about it. Really, he doesn't really mess around with any. He's not us in the minor leagues. He's more. Just out there on the kind of front lines doing his thing. He's a busy guy, so no, just like yeah. But no, we'd book him if we had the chance, sure. But the point I was going to make about the. He's Pirate Larry's gone there. About your pictures, yeah, it's just Mount Baldy. That picture is great. So that's the picture that we've got of you, full circle here, back to the Buddhist discussion.
That Leonard Cohen.
Yeah.
Supposedly that's when Leonard Cohen achieved enlightenment right there at Mount Baldy.
Mm-hmm. Now, and you actually had an interesting story to share. Like you actually met Leonard Cohen back in the 1980s.
Was it the 80s or the early 90s? Yeah, he was playing a show in Chicago. I went up to see him, and it was right before the show. He was with Rebecca De Mornay.
Right.
It's gorgeous. It was a really gorgeous actress. They were a couple.
Yar.
And in any other circumstance, my jaw would be dropping being in the presence of Rebecca De Mornay. Yeah. But there I was in the presence of Leonard Cohen, and
dare not
that took up.
Dare not disrespect the master. So, yeah. Yeah. So that's great. That there's that connection too. Yeah. Actually, it's just as fate, or I guess for karmic reasons, myself as well. Like a student of Buddhism for the past quarter century, really. Very interested in the whole thing. I started the Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche kind of was the crazy wisdom tradition was what I came into contact with first, and that kind of led me. You
went to Naropa?
No, I didn't. And let me just quickly say we have a time delay here too, so we got to just be mindful of that. It's kind of we have to stepping on each other, so we try to get the
mindful speaking. That's a Buddhist thing, right? We have to be mindful.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I don't mean to talk over you.
No, no. It's just we have a time delay. It's like I'm in South Korea, right? So it's like, and you're over in the States. We're opposite ends of the world here. Is it so? Does that work on a flat Earth kind of? Let's not go there right now. We got one of those. We got one of those shows coming up though. A couple, who knows? Probably in a month or so is like what it looks like. But I swore I'd never go there.
I am kind of seeing your slideshow here. It's just the little bottoms of images, really small images.
Just tiny avatar things. Like, what the hell's going on? So, anyways, we're not. If we had an actual, if we had more of a support there in the technical department, we could kind of, kind of improve things on that front. But for the time being, we're just kind of independent and.
Better if you do a full screen. I'm watching it on my huge living room screen here.
Oh.
And if I screen. Everything's coming up in the upper left, and this little steam shovel headings and little pictures of me. It's not so bad.
Yeah, it's got. Yeah, I see. So you're actually watching in your living room on a big widescreen television screen.
Yeah, sure. I'm nestled down in my cyberspace. I'm talking to you on my little Samsung phone here. Got a small computer on one side, and it's all connected to the huge monitor. Just modern communication.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way people watch television now, right?
Sure.
I just got back visiting my daughter in Seattle, and they don't have cable. They don't have any form of television except their television is connected up to their computer, and if they want to find any program they want, if it's not on YouTube, they can figure out some way to hack into it.
Isn't that funny? Because that's exactly the way I do it. Myself, the wife here, we do it too. It's just all torrents and YouTube, documentaries, and we don't watch I try to go easy on the F-bombs here on the show, but just to hell with that crap, like it's just garbage. We haven't watched TV here on a formal basis, like even a half-assed formal basis in close to 5 years, I'd imagine. So it's all in web and just pick and choose, and they say you are what you eat. And you might even be familiar with the Sanskrit term samskara.
Samsara.
No. Samskar.
Samskara.
Yeah.
No, I'm not familiar. What is that?
Well, there's a little hint there if you look at the word. It's like a scar. You are what you eat. These mental impressions coming at you, and everything, even like this discussion we're having now and how it goes and what how it impresses on us, and the shows that we partake and engage in for the media and TV and movies and like I don't watch too many horror movies. I think Jaws is a great flick, but that's a classic. But why feed yourself with that kind of crap when it's just gonna kind of like leave you feeling uneasy and all kind of weirded out and whatnot. I'm more kind of like healthy kind of consumption of things. It's kind of not perfect by any means, but
one of the last blog entries I put up at the Steam Shuffle site was my ode to Roy Scheider,
yes,
the star of Jaws.
I know, yeah. I saw that.
Yeah. He did that show that was based on John Lilly and the isolation tank experience. Sequest DSV, and it was like a lot of science fiction television. Started out, first season really good based on some concepts, but then after a while it gets taken over by the television cliches, and eventually Scheider walked off the job because it was all, guys in rubber suits walking around like sea monsters, and got a long way away from two-way communications with dolphins and isolation tank mushroom experiences.
See, so yeah, that's one of the things I'd actually made note of in the lead up to the show is Roy Scheider. I guess I always say Schneider. Roy Scheider. His role in Jaws was just amazing. So brilliant and just perfect. So for some reason I got into a binge watching mode, and I watched that entire series. Yep. Watched it deteriorate over years again, and just had to give kudos to Scheider because not a lot people like John Lilly and Tim Leary and the great psychedelic researchers. Not enough people know who they are, and fewer still know their full story. And the stuff that kind of leaks through the media distortion is fine. It pins a flag on people and it kind of directs them to things. But at some point, somebody has to come along and say, hey, this is really about this guy, John Lilly. This is really about Timothy Leary, and this is what these people were about. And there's just fewer and fewer people who really have that full story. And there's more and more. What was the other one I saw? There was a movie based on Lilly called Altered States, which was based on a Paddy Chayefsky interpretation of John Lilly. And a guy gets into an ISO tank and comes out as a de-evolved simian of some sort, which doesn't really happen when you get into an ISO tank. But some extraordinary things do happen in the isolation tank. And those experiences have been written about, and anybody who wants to get involved with that should have at least some awareness of who John Lilly was. And Scheider brought that to television, which kudos. So that's why I wrote kudos to Roy Scheider or whatever it was, or blues for Roy Scheider. It's kind of I didn't realize that Scheider died. He's been dead for years. Yeah.
And I didn't know that, so that's why I had to write that.
I wonder if Joe Rogan knows about that connection there, and both the Scheider angle and the decompression. You call it decompression tanks? Is that what you call it? Is that how they're referred to?
Isolation tanks.
Isolation. Yeah, I see. And your article, because maybe he'd be interested. I'm actually I'll shoot that. I don't know the guy personally, but he does. I think he kind of lurks around and keeps an eye on his his groups, and he's got his pages. You can chime in and offer comments and stuff. So, but I think that'd be something he'd definitely be interested in. I'll share that with just that angle, that context of things with the community, larger. Yeah.
It's really very important, because a lot of kids, I just realized this visiting one of my kids in Seattle, are doing that. They're still doing isolation tank stuff and doing it on drugs. And you would think that they'd have some guidance by great scientific minds like John Lilly. And otherwise, it could be a really scary experience.
Absolutely. I think we got Pirate Larry has got he's got something that he'd like to contribute along these lines. You've got Joe Rogan, according to what you've heard, Larry has been put on a no-fly list.
Aye, Jeffy, I saw that on the internet. Joe Rogan has been put on the no-fly list. Yeah.
Since when?
It was just this week. The news was out, and all the controversy over the gun control legislation in the sit-in, there was questions about how do you get off the no-fly list? And that was a, pretty important question, I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. So, and you're saying he got put on it because of what? His advocacy of the Second Amendment?
It was an advocacy thing, yeah. They're starting to call activists terrorists.
Like seriously, you're not like it's not a joke.
No, I'm not joking, Jeffy. I'm up here on the crow's nest. I'm watching the storms are coming, and they're starting to call activists terrorists.
Well, how convenient is that? So, Mr. Thomas, Ken, have you heard anything along these lines?
Well, that's how you get on the no-fly list. You have to be declared a terrorist.
Yeah.
So if they want to put you in there, they have to do that.
But what has Joe Rogan done to deserve that, though? Really, I mean, I don't know. I don't. We got to. What the hell? That's bizarre.
Well, yeah, he doesn't know. You wouldn't know. He wouldn't know, and he has no appeal. There's no way to get off. That's the big. There's no-fly list. You get on them. You don't know how you get on them, and there's no way to get off.
Son of a bitch. Hey, Larry, do you have anything else you'd like to add, or are you back there keeping watch over things?
Well, I'd just like to ask, how deep is the rabbit hole? How deep does it go? Are there good people in the government that are trying to stop this, or is it pretty much everybody's bought? How do they buy them? How do they keep people shut up? I guess they're killing off a lot of them. Thoughts that are crossing my mind.
Well, that's the job of the conspiracy world. I don't call them conspiracy theorists. It's the job of the conspiracy students. I mean, probably everybody out there has an idea that this is a conspiracy or that is a conspiracy, or so many people who work for the government are a conspiracy, or the whole government's a conspiracy. The real way to judge the wheat from the chaff, though, is in the particulars and in the specifics of what they're saying. I mean, these days, it's a popular thing, particularly with James Fetzer, to declare everything that happens as a false flag. And there are certainly things that are false flags, I mean, the most obvious one is Lee Harvey Oswald, right?
Right.
But if everything's a false flag, then nothing's really a false flag.
Right.
So what you need to look at is the particulars. When somebody says that's a false flag, well, why do they say that? And, people come up with some very interesting proofs. I mean, Orlando, for instance. The guy that they're saying is a crisis actor, I remember this guy. It was circulated on the internet a few months before. There was a newscast about a fire at an Arby's, and there was this strange guy who turned out to be an actor comedian, but they kept cutting to him, and he had these weird little strange poem, and a strange reaction to this fire at the place supposedly where he worked. And he turned out to be a comedian actor, and that guy is the spitting image of the main witness to the Orlando shootings.
A lot of talk about crisis actors. I mean, it's hard to ignore those things, obviously. So that's time and time again we're hearing about that very sort of thing happening. So I mean, to totally just to put stick one's head in the sand and completely avoid considering those sort of scenarios as even a possibility is the risk of one's own peril, obviously. So
The of everything is to say that everything is one way or another,
right?
Because the answers to everything lie in the particulars.
One more time. You're breaking up a little bit. One more time, Ken.
I said the answers to everything are in the particulars, not in these kind of general. Oh, the government is all good or all bad.
Right.
What particular situation do you want to discuss?
Right.
And what evidence do you have?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm certain the intelligence agencies, they've got their own cells and their own compartmentalization, and there's the rogue elements as well as people that have more integrity and that won't really go along with certain things. J. Edgar Hoover was in power there and held that office and position of head of the FBI for how many years? Over around almost 50 years or something or more. But right. Do you know that I might even heard this I might even heard this from you, Ken, actually. But he would only promote anyone that was able to get a promotion inside the FBI with Hoover at the helm. They had to be a Freemason, and if they weren't, forget it. You were not going anywhere up the ladder.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah, I don't know if I've documented that, but I've certainly heard that. But what's more interesting to me is, I mean, it's a really developed science, this mind control, media control business. In the last couple of talks that I've done about JFK, I brought up the idea, the reality that a year before the Kennedy assassination, almost every one of the details was put into a Route 66 broadcast.
Right.
Do you know Route 66?
I've heard you with the details, the story here, and what your take on things. And now's as good as time as any, I suppose, to unpack that for our listeners. And we do have listeners at the moment too. By the way, we have a few people on Facebook and whatnot that are curious and have some questions here. So, but go ahead. Let's dive in this for a few moments.
The idea of Route 66 was a television program that was kind of like the television version of Kerouac and Cassidy. It was like two guys driving across the country to discover America. Martin Milner and the other guy escapes me. But anyway, in this episode that happened a year before the Kennedy assassination, the guys drive into Dallas, into Love Field. One of them gets a job at the Trade Mart, which is where Oswald, the Trade Mart is where Kennedy was supposed to speak before the motor was redirected into the sniper's nest in Dealey Plaza.
Right.
And in fact, during the course of the program, one of the guys gets on the phone to Charles Cabell, the government official who actually redirected the motorcade route.
That's right.
And and there's like maybe a half a dozen other things that matched up this show with the Kennedy assassination. This is a year before the assassination happened. And then there was a second program in which there was a Marilyn Monroe type that took place in a town called Kilkenny, Kennedy, that was also right outside of Dallas. And there are photographs of George Maharis was the second guy. There's the photographs of him hanging out in Jack Ruby's strip club. And this is again before the assassination.
Photographs, did you say?
There are photographs. There are still photographs of George Maharis hanging out at with Jack Ruby at one of his strip clubs.
Yeah, there's also photographs of Jim Mars dancing on the stage of the Carousel Club. It's kind of public knowledge really for anyone that's looked into it. So, but yeah, these are just synchronicities.
Jim Mars didn't have the details of the Kennedy assassination in any book that was published before it happened. Although he did a marvelous job of writing it up Crossfire.
Sure.
In fact, Oliver Stone's book is based on that.
Right.
Yeah, but anyway, actually, there was a third episode of Route 66 that didn't air, and it was about a political assassination, and they had to pull it off because it was scheduled to air the week Kennedy was shot, and they thought it was too insensitive to play it. So this dovetails into also this notion that 9/11 was predicted on an early episode of the show called The Lone Gunman.
That's right.
Yeah. And you see this, so the whole apparatus in the media, it's set up that they can actually, and John Judge used to say that they put agents into Hollywood to kind of work out the details of these conspiracies.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And then broadcast and put on a national broadcast before they ever even happened. And that to me is
revelation of the method. Is I think one of the ways some people refer to it as predictive programming is another kind of that's another angle as well too, I guess, right? But you've heard the term revelation of the method?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So let's just keep. So, so anything further? Well, I know one of the things that came to mind while you're unpacking that for people was the Manchurian Candidate with Sinatra. That was put on ice. Sinatra himself, I guess, was thought to have had a hand in that. Was it correct?
That's right. Yeah, he kept it from being released for many years after the assassination.
Well, how about that, huh? And then yeah,
about RFK too, called the parallax view.
Parallax, pardon me, parallax.
Parallax view with Warren Beatty. It was about RFK.
Oh, I see. Interesting. I've heard that name, the title. Yeah. So how about that? But yeah. And speaking of John Judge, he passed away just a couple of years ago, I guess. Did he not?
Yeah, it has been a couple of years. In fact, I just finished writing a note. Somebody is producing a new edition of Judge's book called Judge for Yourself. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I don't even know if it's actually ever had a real publisher. It was Samizdat when Judge was still alive, and he would be selling it at UFO conferences and conspiracy conferences back in the 80s and the early 90s. But I just wrote a note that's going to be appended to that about. I mean, that was a major blow in terms of all of JFK assassination research. Judge's death was probably the biggest thing that's brought it really mostly to a halt. His group, Coalition on Political Assassinations, doesn't really exist anymore. Although there has been an effort to try to create a museum called the Hidden History Museum, based on all of his collected files.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mae Brussel, of course, who I think he was one of her Brussels sprouts, correct?
Brussels sprouts, right. And after May passed, there was all this infighting beset the community, right? John Judge represented one faction, and the other faction was actually represented by Dave Emery.
There you go.
I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
sure am,
he actually, he's the guy I think provided the model for all of these people like Alex Jones, the angry white guy, who's got more anger than research. One thing that I tried to get across in this note, and that I tried to get across to people who didn't really know John, is that he was a funny guy. Mm-hmm. The idea of knowing all this conspiracy stuff actually is kind of inspired his humor. There's irony there. There's we laugh to keep from crying kind of thing. It wasn't all anger and despair, which is really what you get out of a lot of the conspiracy community now. And that is probably.
Yeah, I mean, what other way is there to look at things, really? I mean, that's the best approach, obviously. There's nothing, yeah, George Carlin, I often bring this up, or just talk about it. We're spectators, really, in a lot of ways. People such as yourself, and I guess Carlin, though, that was his approach of being a spectator, and that when you're born this world, you get a ticket to the freak show, and in America you get a front row seat. So that was his thing, So, but really, what power do? Go ahead.
This is quite a developed philosophy. Actually, my whole point of view is actually shaped by a philosopher named Guy Debord, who wrote a book called The Society of the Spectacle. His biographer, in fact, is Len Bracken, another great conspiracy writer who also wrote The Shadow Government, the first book to really do anything extensive about 9/11. But Guy Debord and the Situationists, they're like the ideological underpinnings of my point of view, and the point of view I think I shared with John Judge and many other people. That the thing is, this stuff is very serious, mm-hmm. and we need to be angry about it. But it doesn't need to be so serious that it twists us into be nothing but angry all the time.
Right.
That's when conspiracy wins.
Yeah. Could you just those names again? Who your kind of the philosophical sort of underpinnings to who the thinkers, intellectuals, and researchers that have inspired you? What were those names again? Just one more time, if you don't mind.
Guy Debord, G-U-Y. It's French. G-U-Y Debord, D-E-B-O-R-D, and his famous book is Society of the Spectacle. Huh. And if you want to learn more about his life, you need to find the biography written by Len Bracken.
Right.
Who Bracken and I were both good friends to John Judge. In fact, after 9/11, Len Bracken and John Judge and I went to the hotel that's right across from the Pentagon, mm-hmm. and talked to the staff there, the cleaning crew and the people that worked at the hotel to see, what they had seen, and they'd all pointed to the cameras. There was a security cameras on every floor of that hotel. Now, the only footage that we have of the crash of the Pentagon plane is from a Citgo station across the street from this hotel. And it's not really footage. It's a series of still photographs, and it's not very clear. But all these workers at this hotel, and many of them just spoke Spanish. Len was fluent in both languages, and that was great. Mm-hmm. And after talking to Len and John Judge and I, they all said that FBI agents had come around and confiscated the security footage, security camera footage. So I mean, it's a possibility that there was nothing on any of those cameras. There was never the Citgo station still photographs were all released after a FOIPA complaint was filed, Freedom of Information Act. Nobody did anything similar about any footage from that hotel. There may be more footage.
You think that somebody would, but and the Kennedy assassination, it's the same MO, isn't it? With the Men in Black, or the quasi de facto Men in Black, the real Men in Black, I guess, is the swooping down and seizing and intimidating and demanding, like it was like how many people did? There's so much footage. It's just we'll get it back to you. Just this is important. We just do patriotic duty.
Right. The film stated that was never returned.
Yeah, Beverly Oliver. That's one name that comes to mind.
Beverly Oliver is one of them. The interesting thing about assassination research, the thing that I'm waiting for, is David Lifton's next book. I don't know if you remember Lifton, but he wrote a book called Best Evidence, and he was the person who first surfaced the photograph of what's called the wink photograph.
Yes.
It's a picture of Albert Thomas winking at Lyndon Johnson after he gets sworn in on the plane.
Air Force One. That's the infamous wink. Yeah.
Right. That was a book called Best Evidence by David Lifton, who has since supposedly for years now been writing a biography of Oswald, which also contains what he knows about the body switch. And he's like supposedly talked to people who, they instead of putting the JFK's body on Air Force One, it was switched with a body that was surgically altered. That was another thing about David Lifton's research. He discovered in the FBI reports a note about surgical alteration to the head, that they had altered the wounds to make it look like a shot had come from the rear.
Right.
And there's apparently a lot more on this, and it's probably the most interesting bit of research that will surface. But it's been years since Lifton has said anything.
J.D. Tippett, in fact, I think was one of the people that it was speculated he was seemed to have been kind of swept up in the whole intrigue and all that kind of went down on that the infamous day, the November 22nd in 1963. So, but that, and he, with his relationship and what he was doing after the assassination, running around all frantic and ended up getting shot. But this goes back to what Pirate Larry had brought up earlier, that with these I mean these files that have been sealed for over 50 years now, and so yeah, what can we expect next then to see on that front? Are we ever going to? Is the public ever going to be able to gain access to what the spooks and whatnot have hidden away for so long?
Many files were released. There was the Assassination Materials Review Board in the 90s that released many, and many are still sealed, and they probably have information in there that might move the story forward a little bit. But you have to ask yourself, what is there left to do? I mean, the official government position on the Kennedy assassination is that he was killed as a result of a conspiracy. That was the upshot of the 1976 House Committee.
Yeah.
So that's about as close as you're going to get. And the research community had been working on JFK stuff for 50 years. I mean, a nation full of people. Actually, this is interesting. I remember that people used to ask Leary about the assassination all the time because Leary had a friend, Mary Pinchot Monger, who was JFK's last lover.
Right.
And Leary would never be forthcoming about anything that he believed about the Kennedy assassination. And they asked him why, and he said, well, because thousands of people are really working on that. He didn't really feel obligated to try to push that story forward, and he was right. And what I actually tell people is that there's there's a good possibility that 3 teams of 3 people were there to shoot Kennedy, and who they all were and their particular involvement is probably best known by looking at Garrison's investigation, because he was closer to the time it was happened, and I know he's a controversial figure, but he was the trails were fresher then. He talked to more people, and I don't think anybody has the exact answer, but I really think that the Kennedy assassination studies and our understanding of that assassination is pretty far advanced. How much more we can expect.
Speaking of Garrison, this is something I'm pretty sure, as I recall, something about Johnny Carson, the infamous Johnny Carson episode, which there is no available video of, but there is an audio. There is some of the audio that's available on YouTube. So why don't you just get into that, or to explain to people, listeners, what actually happened on the infamous Johnny Carson appearance that Garrison was a part of there.
Sure. That's good, because that's really, I think that's a missed moment in American history. Carson had brought Garrison on to his show and told him that he was a controversial figure then, and Carson knew that he could get himself into all kinds of legal trouble depending on what Garrison had to say. So Garrison went on there. He talked about how he felt the CIA was involved. He held up the picture of the 3 tramps, the hobos. And I'm sure the more knowledgeable of your listeners understand that those 3 hobos have been identified variously by various researchers. Some people believe that they are E. Howard Hunt and Frank Sturgis, Watergate burglars, and that the third one, and this was the guy that Garrison was talking about on the Carson show. He was just about to name who he was, and it was Fred Krisman. Mm-hmm. But Carson shut him down before he could get the words out of his mouth. At that moment on national television, people could have realized that Fred Krisman, maybe people would have made the connection that I made in the Maury Island book, because Fred Krisman was one of the witnesses of the first UFO event in the post-war world, in post-war American history. And he's also the guy that Garrison thought was the grassy knoll shooter.
And this is where things weren't already weird enough. This is where things really start to get, we find ourselves really tumbling down the rabbit hole because of this UFO connection and these people like Bannister, was it Guy Bannister? Yeah, the relationship with him down in New Orleans, and then Mark Felt, the Deep Throat is tied into the whole. What's going on here exactly? Can you make those connections? Can you flesh that out for people?
Okay, you've got 2 tributaries here, Mark Felt and Guy Bannister. Let me do the Guy Bannister thing, because that relates to current politics. That's finally what shut down Ted Cruz as the Republican nominee. Was the last. Trump finally glommed onto some research that had actually been surfaced by a guy named Wade Madsen, that Cruz's grandfather was there with Lee Harvey Oswald passing out pro-Castro leaflets in Dallas. Was it Dallas? I'm not quite sure where.
No. At the New Orleans. Pretty sure it's New Orleans. Down there, right down. Yeah, pretty sure.
Now the point that was missed there, the idea was that Trump was trying to use it as, that the grandfather was somehow involved in Kennedy's assassination and therefore was un-American, and this means that Cruz himself was un-American and all that. But the point that was missed is that what Oswald was doing, history shows, is working for Guy Bannister. It was a cover story. He was trying to ingratiate himself amongst the Cuban activist committee. That's why he was passing out those leaflets. That's why, if that's Cruz's grandfather, that's why he was doing it. They were doing their patriotic duty of trying to infiltrate communist cell under the tutelage of Guy Bannister, who, as you know, was an actor in the Maury Island case. Bannister, in fact, recovered a 30-inch flying saucer that was reported in the news in the Pacific Northwest right before the Maury Island case, and he was friends with Jim Garrison up there in the Pacific Northwest in the late 40s.
Did you say Cruz's father or grandfather?
His grandfather. The story was it was his grandfather.
No. I'm sorry. I think I've got to correct you on that one. It's his father, actually.
His father, maybe so.
I think senior. So yeah, pretty sure his father. It's whatever. I think people get the
You're
picture
right.
there.
Right.
So
You're-
yeah.
yeah. Sorry.
But now,
Uh-huh.
isn't sheep dipping? There's a great. Now we've got two terms. So people want to know about. People are asking in the peanut gallery that we've got set up over here on Facebook. They want to know about parapolitics. But before we get into that, sheep dipping, if you could just quick, because that directly applies, I guess, to what happened with Oswald and his kind of multifaceted sort of character and very kind of is the word nebulous, or it's kind of hard to pin him down. He's this character one day, and then the next he's kind of that, kind of flip flopping around, and nobody knows what are we to make of him when there's all these different stories and reports and angles and
Yeah. I think what you just said actually reflected his own mental state. I don't know if Oswald knew who he was working for at the time, but we do know he didn't shoot anybody. He didn't shoot anybody. One mainstream source for that is Robert McNeil, the guy that used to be with the McNeil Era Report on PBS. You're probably too young to remember that, but he was an upright newsman.
Yeah.
In the Walter Cronkite mode. He was there in Dallas when the shots happened. When it happened, he was looking for a telephone, and he walked past the guy that he later identified as Oswald, and he asked him, "Where is the phone?" And Oswald, who had been up on the second floor of the book depository sipping a Coke, had come down to see what all the commotion was about, and he calmly pointed to a payphone for Robert McNeil, and then walked away. He wasn't in a panic, he obviously hadn't.
Oh, yeah, I've never heard that before. I've never heard him. I didn't. Wow, how about that? No kidding. So he's on the record. He's on the record. Robert McNeil. Did he? I think he might even be dead now. Actually, one of those.
Yeah, I probably. So.
Yeah. Was he the Canadian?
No.
One of them was Canadian.
Yeah.
McNeil.
But he's not. But he's not a crazy conspiracy theorist on the internet. He is to me that gives him a lot of credibility.
Yeah, he's establishment. He's establishment.
He's in the media every night. But if you're looking for a respectable
fact checking,
yeah.
Well, that's fact checking, and that's critical. And that's where I think people got to be careful when doing their research, because the waters tend to get a little muddied and picture blurry.
I don't want to make McNeil's story has no more gravity with me than anybody's story. I don't want to say that mainstream media sources are the ones that if you get that the mainstream media tells it to you, then it's got to be true. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to say that in my model of understanding things, you need to have you need to take all the information you get from all the sources and do a triangulation of understanding. And if a mainstream media source is saying something that also kind of supports a conspiracy view, well, then you got a certain percentage more credibility that that's real.
I see. If you're saying if the
triangulation,
right, gotcha. Yeah,
triangulation of crossfire.
Right. Yeah.
Makes that gets done.
So,
but what I'm saying is that there can be as many as 3 shooters from 3 different areas: the book depository, at the Daltex building, at the manhole site, which is where Judge thought it came from, and the rail yard. And there are the identities of these people have been researched by different people. And the thing is, you just have to go and read the large body of research that's out there. You can tell which ones aren't real. I mean, there are any number of jailhouse confessions, for instance, for the Kennedy assassination. And just because somebody confesses to it doesn't mean that they did it. And we know who a lot of these people are. And the thing is, we don't have the precise answer, but we have a large enough body of understanding about everything that happened that day, probably more so than any event in history, that we can draw certain conclusions that Oswald didn't do it.
Yeah, but you're saying we know who these people are, but it's interesting you talk on the mainstream. The mainstream has hardly any idea about Fred Krisman, and that's where you've stepped up to the plate, obviously, and for years now kept kind of hammering that one home and saying, people, hey, hello, hello, check this, this is over here.
That gets back to Mark Felt.
Yeah.
Mark Felt is the guy that is now accepted as Deep Throat in the Watergate.
Right.
Now, if you remember that the 3 tramps are, for the sake of argument, let's call them Howard Hunt, Frank Sturgis and Fred Krisman. Howard Hunt and Sturgis are Watergate people, and so is Mark Felt. Now, Mark Felt's name is on Krisman's job application. He was the one who reviewed Krisman's job application when he applied for a job at the Hancock nuclear reactor in the Pacific Northwest. The other thing about Mark Felt is that he was a script consultant to a television program called The Invader. And then we get back to conspiracy on television. The Invaders was a take that back. Mark Felt was a script consultant to a show called The FBI, which was a Quinn Martin production. Quinn Martin's production also did The Invaders. And The Invaders was a television program that Fred Krisman used to tell people was based on his life.
Right. And that's today. That's just an example, like a single case example of what really is quite systemic today throughout the entertainment and Hollywood. But also, you look at things like Operation Mockingbird, and which they claim on Wikipedia. Oh, and speaking of Wikipedia, I guess it seems you're now important enough apparently to actually have your own site. So, and Paige, congratulations. So.
Oh, it's been that way for years.
Yeah.
I've had a Wikipedia page for years. I don't know who puts it up.
Wasn't there a time though where there was some kind of they were not letting you have a Wikipedia page?
No, there was a time. I don't like the fact that it says where I live, and I tried to get that removed. I tried any number of times to get it removed, and they keep putting it back. So, it's out of my hands.
Yeah. Well, okay. But the one thing about this whole there's so many different directions we could go here, of course. But the Maury Island, this is what a story. I really don't want to get too much into it today, though, because I'm hoping. I mean, if we have to, if we don't have anything else to talk about, but because you've done it. There's a lot of other podcasts and YouTube you've lectures and interviews and material out there people can find if they're interested, and by all means it's well worth investigating. So, but Kenneth Arnold, he came, I guess he was sent, maybe you can kind of tie this up for people. He came to investigate, look into the Harold Dahl, the boat that had been reportedly damaged by the slag material that fell onto the boat, and when Arnold investigated, apparently he said, according to the reports I've come across, he could not find any damage. That's the one thing that kind of leaves me scratching my head. What?
Well,
what's the deal there?
Let me point out. Are you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me point out that today is Kenneth Arnold Day. This is the day that Kenneth Arnold saw the chevrons on Mount Rainier.
Today, June 24th.
Yeah, 69 years ago.
Whoa, that's heavy, man. That is so cool. That is. I was born in '69.
Oh, he's just a youngster.
I'm a Cancer too, and believe me, 69's been a big number in my life. So, how about that? That's far out. That's groovy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, so the details. Remember everything that happened with Kenneth Arnold. He didn't know what to make of everything that he had seen or not seen, and that's why he turned it over to Air Force investigators.
Right.
Davidson and Brown. And then when Davidson and Brown took, Krisman supposedly had examples of the slag that he gave them from the cornflakes cans, and they loaded it up on an Air Force plane and took off, and it crashed, and they died. The last we saw of that slag. So.
Just another coincidence, or not. Bill Burns from UFO Hunters. That's the kind of where I kind of keyed into this, and that because I think he's pretty fair. And you've been on their show, the Future Theater radio show, and whatnot. And I'd like to see it. Go ahead.
Burns has gone out looking for that plane.
Yeah, he did. And he got shot at in the process of doing that too.
Yeah. Bill. Yeah.
But the one thing that kind of puzzles me as well too. We talk about the slag, but there was also like a local smelting plant, like just right nearby there too. Could it not possibly have been? And this is, I think, what Burns proposes as a possible scenarios that the slag was actually it was from the let's assume for a moment, just devil's advocacy, that the whole thing was just kind of made up, and that these con men, of which Crisman was kind of, you go back to the whole is it Dayro and the what the heck, oh gosh, the whole thing, the shaver, the shaver mysteries and so forth, and that guy Shaver was interviewed by Long John Neville back in the day, I guess. Did you ever get a chance to listen to those shows?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. Oh, yeah. Richard Shaver it argued that there's this underground race called the Dayros, and one of the earliest sign of Fred Crisman on the scene is that he wrote. The thing about it is Shaver wrote these stories about the Dayros, and then people who read them started writing in with their own experiences, and the Dayros became a phenomenon that wasn't just out of the imagination of one writer, but was, at the very least, kind of a group hallucination of a number of writers. The first of which was Fred Crisman, who talked about going into the caves in Burma and getting shot in the arm with a laser device. It was before the laser was invented. And actually, what occurs to me now is that one interesting aspect of this story is that the laser was in part developed with the help of a guy named Michael Riconosciuto,
right?
Who was the son of Crisman's business partner, Marshall Riconosciuto.
Isn't that interesting? And that ties into the whole octopus debacle with Casolaro, Casolaro.
Michael Riconosciuto, as long as I'm on a conspiracy theory here, Michael Riconosciuto was part of the weapons development program that went on Indian territory, in India, California, the Cabazons. He worked for a security group called Wackenhut.
Right.
And one of the interesting things about this is that the guy in Orlando who shot up, killed all those people, had in his effects had an identity card that showed that he worked for Wackenhut.
Isn't that just another happy coincidence, I suppose, for some, but yeah. Yeah. And you've got that actually on your Facebook page. That's some. I think one of your followers they shared. I think they shared that recently on Facebook.
That's right. Yeah. Wackenhut apparently had become a subsidiary of something called G4, which is a private security. It goes into this whole controversy about these large private police forces, like what's now called G4 Wackenhut, and all of this conspiracy underpinnings is just a demonstration of how corrupt they are.
So we've got, speaking of Wackenhut, one of the things that comes to mind there is, military-industrial complex and private prisons for profit. And we're going to get Pirate Larry on board here in a second, but just before we do that, apparently the Bush crime syndicate, or I'm not sure about the Clinton end of that whole operation, the octopus or the Kraken, that enterprise that they've built up for themselves. But the Bushes, you would think oil and armaments are their primary investment, but really what it is apparently is these private prisons for profit.
Right.
Yeah, that's the number one. So I'm not sure if you have anything to say to that or not.
I'd already said a lot in the Octopus. There's I think an entire chapter on Wackenhut.
Right.
In fact, I just created a new Facebook page to deal with nothing but octopus type stuff. I haven't actually put on anything. I think I put that quote that it's actually 3 or 4 paragraphs that kind of summarizes the history of Wackenhut and its connection to George Smathers and all the dirty politics of Florida.
Well, and we'll be sure. Speaking of links and whatnot, we're always very keen and conscientious to part of what we believe is the value added component, that end of our show, is the way that we go to town with the show notes after we wrap things up, and everything's very meticulous, so that if people are interested in further investigating and looking into things for themselves via the web primarily, that or if they want to buy one of your books or what have you, that's more than welcome to do that as well too. But we put together very extensive show notes, so we're definitely going to do that with today's episode. But Wackenhut, what I was going to say is Tommy Chong and his imprisonment, and which kind of that whole business of how he went to he was put behind bars for I guess it was distributing his own brand and line of pot pipes, which I guess I'm assuming now is not such a big deal. But speaking of Tommy Chong, and thankfully he is free and has managed to live a very happy life since getting out. But we've got Pirate Larry here standing by, and I tell you, man, Pirate Larry is like it's like having our own virtual Tommy Chong here be a part of things. I'm not sure if you picked up on that or not, Ken, but I certainly did, and I get a big kick out of it. So, Larry, are you at the ready?
Hi, Jeffy. I'm here. I'm up on the crow's nest.
Well, now, first of all, I guess the whole thing with this, it was, I guess, a Brad Pitt impersonator was what you're saying there.
Yeah. So apparently the internet was pulling my wooden leg.
Aha.
But what I researched and found was that in the Hollywood Reporter last week, there was somebody who was pranking Brad Pitt, and he actually crashed a premiere that Brad Pitt was going to, and the FBI thought he might be crazy enough to harm Brad Pitt, and so they put him on a no-fly list.
But that was a while ago, wasn't it?
Well, that's the internet.
Okay, well, we'll look at. That's why we got the show notes for. People can look into things themselves, and
he should have been given a medal if he was going to try to bring some pain to Brad Pitt. Listen, I do have a Tommy Chong related story. The movie to see, the Cheech and Chong movie to watch is called Nice Dreams.
Yeah.
In it, they take acid with Leary. Tim Leary is actually in this movie.
That's right.
And and he gives him acid, and he starts tripping out. And at some point, he like flashes on Jimi Hendrix, who goes, "Purple haze all in my brain. What's this Negro doing on this stage? Feeling fun. I don't know why. Excuse me while I kiss this fly." And he grabs a fly from the air, and the fly says, "Help me!" Like right out of the Vincent Price movie. He kisses it, lets it go.
Well, yeah,
quite a trip.
Stacy Keach, that was his. Was it Stacy Keach who ate the fly? Because that's the whole thing. That brand of weed that they were developing was so out of control and over the top that Stacy Keach ended up turning into like an iguana or something, didn't he? So
classic.
And Pee Wee Herman he did a cameo in that, and I think that's where he's cutting down. He's like, Bruce Springsteen's going to ruin rock and roll. I'm not doing Pee Wee Herman, but he just made that comment. So yeah, Springsteen's he's going to put an end to this rock and roll thing. But speaking of Hendrix and Tommy Chong, did you know? Apparently, I'm guessing you might, but they crossed paths a time or two back in the day.
Tommy Chong and who?
Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, Jimi Hendrix. Oh, of course. I just got back from the Hendrix display in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's right next to a Star Trek display, which is also next to a sci-fi movie display in the museum that's right next to the Space Needle. That's what's going on in Seattle now.
That's another episode that we could do. I'm not sure if you'd be the authority on that matter or not, but I know that I've heard stories and reports and heard people talk about how this whole suicide or accidental overdose thing is just a total cover story, just total nonsense, and that in fact he was murdered by his manager. That his manager Jeffries, he hired a couple thugs. And they held him down, and they filled his lungs with red wine, and what have you. So he drowned in that. They drowned him with the red wine, basically. It's kind of how it all kind of played out, and it's terrible.
There's stories about that with most major figures. John Lennon's assassination is. There's a barrister in England. I almost remember the name. He wrote a book called "Who Killed John Lennon."
It was called. What was the title, Ken? One more time.
It's called "Who Killed John Lennon."
Okay.
And the author is a guy who also wrote a history of Interpol, whose name I haven't been able to forget for a long time, but apparently tonight, fortunately, I'm right next to
William Stevenson.
No.
Intrepid Trips. Mr. Intrepid there, yeah. So, but do you know that I actually wrote a tribute song a number of years ago. I used to do that on the side back in the day. I'll share the link with you later after the show. But
Fenton Bresler.
go ahead.
Yeah, the name is Fenton Bresler. Who killed
yes.
John Lennon?
Yes, yeah. He's very well known. Fenton. That's a
The other thing was a book on Interpol, which is good. He was a great. He's passed now too, but he was a great investigative reporter, great conspiracy writer.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, so what would you and I have the whole John Lennon thing. That's a whole nother bag. That's a whole nother can of worms. And I have the Jose Padermo. Do you know the story behind that and how he was the doorman and then he was talking with Mark David Chapman for most of that day out in front, talking about the JFK assassination and the Bay of Pigs, of which it just so happened that former supposedly CIA asset, because he was a part of that. He was a part of the Bay of Pigs operation. Jose Padermo. His name never came out into the press for the next 10 years or so. And nobody even talked about it, or as if they didn't want anyone to really kind of go there, But investigators have.
Yeah, I went to the Dakota once and to scope out the scene, and where Chapman fired from, he could have walked just a few feet and gone down some steps into a subway terminal. It's absolutely guaranteed just by walking a few steps.
What happened instead? How did it all play out? He didn't do that. What happened?
He just sat down on the ledge there, and I don't know. Did he start reading the book, Catcher in the Rye?
It would be that would be the book, the old infamous Catcher in the Rye book, which has been linked to so many Manchurian candidates. People like I'm not sure if it was the case with Sirhan, of who I strongly believe was framed. It's just too much corruption. It just stinks. It stinks to the high heavens with the way evidence and this. It's just intimidation. Standard techniques. Witnesses
of mind. Sirhan is a good case of mind control. You can see in his diaries he writes over and over again, very hypnotically. RFK must die. RFK must die.
Have you seen the Darren Brown special, the Assassin special that's on YouTube?
No, I haven't actually.
Oh boy, we'll put a link up to that. He's a hypnotist. He's a magician, and it's a test. He shows people can be hypnotized. There's I guess some people that are a little more difficult to they're not as susceptible, but
Sirhan was imprisoned by Ewan Cameron. It was notorious. He's the guy that stopped the charging, or no, that drugged the elephant. It was Jose Delgado stopped the charging bull. That's another theory. That's another interesting theory. I did a book called Mind Control, Oswald JFK.
Right. Got it here.
That Oswald was mind controlled. Now, if you don't buy the idea that Oswald did it, what's the mind control all about? And the technology specifically that they use is kind of well known to mind control researchers, called RHIC-EDOM, radio hypnotic intracerebral control, and electronic dissolution of memory. And my thought was that if indeed that technology was used with Oswald, then it doesn't necessarily contradict the idea that Oswald didn't do anything. That instead of it causing, because you remember Delgado was on the front page of the New York Times stopping a charging bull with that technology. He didn't cause the bull to charge, he stopped it. So maybe Oswald was stopped from shooting, and that all kind of fits into that theory.
Well, I had her name written down. Judy Verith Baker.
Baker, right?
Yeah,
right. She.
And her her testimony and so forth. So that's that's one of the key missing pieces to the whole puzzle, as far as I'm circumcised. So that's my little kind of catchphrase. So crazy Jaffe, huh? So, but oh man, there's so many things. Once I want to get into the whole Leary CIA thing before we shut things down here. We could say that for the after show, to which you have said that you will be able to make yourself available, correct?
Yeah, sure.
That's the feature content to all our listeners too. Actually, people can feel free to just kind of drop in and and join us. We're there to have fun. I mean, you can. This is a pirate ship after all, so things can get a little bit wild and weird from time to time. That's fine, but anyways, so but that's a member section. Although when we do record the show live, what we've experienced in the past is just all kinds of people popping up from out of nowhere, it seems. So, which is a lot of fun. Makes things quite spontaneous. But a couple, just the Timothy, because that's one of the things that came out in the shows that I was reviewing that you did with you got quite a few here in the archive I've stored away, and was just kind of revisiting to kind of just refamiliarize myself with your history and material. But the Future Theater folks, Bill and Nancy Burns, and I've kind of been a fan of their show for a couple of years now. So, and actually had one of their co-hosts, or had their producer actually came on. It was with his UFO story, Chris Brown, just about a month or so ago. But they brought up they wanted to talk to you about the Leary, what you knew about Leary and his CIA connections and that whole angle, and as well they mentioned there's some episode, they have a bootleg episode of the show Taken or something that they had at in their possession. Did they ever get a copy of that along to you?
No, what is that about?
Oh, you told me that was a few years ago, I think, or is one of the what was one of those? Oh, no, it's not Taken. It's Dark Skies or something. It's one of those old. Was it that one?
Yeah, remember when Dark Skies was coming out? It was like one week I was doing the Steam Shovel website at that point, and one week I'd put some topic on there like Dorothy Kilgallen's connection to the assassination.
Right.
And the next week, Dark Skies show, Dorothy Kilgallen would be would be a character in the show, and it happened like for 3 weeks running. But it was a cool little show. I liked it. As far as Leary in the CIA, there's a lot of people like to believe that, Leary worked for the CIA for some mind control program. But,
right.
Anybody who has any familiarity with Leary's work is that if that was the case, then he kind of took their money and ran, because Leary's whole point of view was to think for yourself and to question authorities like the CIA.
Right. I think the allegation is, there's some footage actually, believe it or not, that it's been Jan Irwin actually. He managed to get a hold of it, and Leary's there sitting around with. It might even be like Captain Trips, Al Hubbard, and a few others. They're kind of like professorial, very that whole kind of crowd, very the egghead sort of types and whatnot. For lack of a better term, but they sitting around this kind of undercover footage that was taken, and they're talking about Leary's referring to these like the bus that was which is driving around distributing acid to people and whatnot, and is almost like the bus seems to be like the Kesey connection. So I'll share that with you later and put in the show notes and whatnot.
I think there's this whole kind of right-wing point of view that all the hippies and all the drug things was all the creation of the CIA, and actually Leary said that too, kind of like in a joking manner, because the CIA did do drug experiments on people.
Yeah.
But instead of getting mind control, it all kind of got out of control. It didn't really quite work. Unless, of course, you want to admit that all these hippies were kind of lambish people, and that instead of any real revolution, any real social reform, they all kind of sat around gazing at their navels.
Right.
But Leary said that time and again. In fact, you can see this. I don't know if you can find it on YouTube or not, but he was on a PBS program once with a guy named Dennis Woolley, in which he said, when I said tune in, turn on, and drop out, I didn't mean just sit around stoned listening to Beatles records all the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's why. Tune in, turn on, and take over, take charge.
There you go. In fact, I came up with another one. I turn that on its head. It's like tune in, turn off. It escapes me now. I'll throw that out there later, but you'll see what I'm talking about. So,
said I was writing a note from this new book. I wish I could plug this book better than I can. I just don't know how you get it. I know a guy named Joseph Green. My friend Joseph Green is doing a new edition of Judge for Yourself. And one of the points I made was that John Judge pushed it a little bit farther than Leary. Because Leary used to say, think for yourself, and Judge was like, judge for yourself. Once you do have the information, you can make it.
Yeah. So, and the whole, was it the Mary Pinchot Meyer? That angle's really well worth people if they're interested in checking out, because there's a real strong connection there that you know about and you've talked about from, I guess,
Yeah,
reference time.
this is actually kind of funny. I've had some exchange with there are JFK researchers out there who hate me for doing things like one of my books is an annotated edition of something called the Torbit document.
Yes.
And JFK, there are JFK researchers out there who think that's a bunch of bullshit, and I'm some kind of a criminal for having resurfaced the way I did. But in that little faction of the JFK community, they are so worshipful of JFK that they can't even accept the idea that he slept with women.
Oh my God. Jeez. Dr. Feelgood. Dr. Feelgood.
A part of the way I smear JFK is by making this point that he had this lover that he probably dropped acid with, someone who knew Leary, and that makes me some kind of a bad guy in the eyes of this faction of the JFK community, which otherwise I respect because there are a lot of good researchers there. But that's the case. Mary Pinchot Meyer was dropping acid with Kennedy in the White House, and Kennedy was, he was getting the message. He was remember one of the major reasons he was shot was because he was about ready to stop the war in Vietnam. The first national action memorandum after he died was Johnson turning that around, stopping the troop.
Yeah. There was. There was. It's not just one. There was a multitude. Go ahead.
He was getting hippified, he was dropping acid. Everything was cool and groovy. We don't need to fight these wars. It's a new. It's also, it's also doing rapprochement with Castro at the time.
Yeah.
It's all just a matter of
it. Are you up to speed at all with? Do you know this book that Bill Burns put out called Dr. Feelgood, or Max Jacobson? I think you guys talked about it on the show how with Kennedy being shot up with this methamphetamine sort of magic solution.
Not as familiar as I'd like to be.
I see. There's a lot. Go ahead.
So is this a charge that's being made against?
Oh yeah, there's a whole
Leary
book. There's a book that no, not Leary. No. Max Jacobson was the doctor at the time. So the book is called Dr. Feelgood. Bill Burns is one of the authors, and I'm not sure if Joel Martin helped him out on that. I think it was another writing companion of his. So. But that's quite a read. I got that one here too, and it's a mind blower, man. Like he was, according to the research, that Kennedy was like the Khrushchev meeting. He was totally whacked out, and just because they knew about it, right? Like Soviet intelligence and whatnot, they knew about him having to, because he was a sick guy, right? With his multiple illnesses, his back pain. He had the Atkinson's disease and all kinds of, In fact, haven't you said like some people have speculated that he wouldn't have even if he would have lived, that he would not have lived to see the end of his second term because of these illnesses. So, but yeah, that's the title of the book. But just a quick rapid fire kind of just kind of wind things down here, because we try to keep things to about 90 minutes here of live recording kind of airtime, streaming through YouTube and tunein.com. But so the Leary connection. One last thing on that matter, Aleister Crowley. Now there's a great clip, and now you might not know anything. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just asking you. But he's famously quoted and seen in this clip to claim that he's come to complete the work of like the great beast, Aleister Crowley. It's kind of along the lines of like L. Ron Hubbard, the way that he praised Crowley and considered him a good friend, that kind of deal. So. Crowleyanity.
Again, if you get a chance to look up this, it was a PBS Late Night with Dennis Bowley. He talks about Aleister Crowley. Oh. He actually even puts him. He says, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law."
Right.
But he puts his own appendage on there, under love. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law under love, which puts a really different spin on. People are just fascinated with the dark imagery and magic, the occult magic of Aleister Crowley.
Yeah.
And Leary certainly wasn't like that, but Crowley was a big influence on him.
Yeah, Love Under Law, I believe, is the it's either like Thelema or the OTO, or I'm not much of a student of these.
You know, a series, a television series, miniseries on the life of Jack Parsons. Yeah.
Where who did this? What are you referring to? Or?
It's boy, I had all the details of this.
Yeah.
Well, it's the life of Jack Parsons, but it's not based on the book, the Feral House book, which is the best book, Sex and Rockets. It's based on the book. And the guy who did it is Ridley Scott.
Oh,
thank you for being there. Ridley Scott is doing a mini series. I could almost remember the title. Probably in 15 or 20 minutes, I'll have the title of it in my mind. But it's Ridley Scott, and it's on the life of Jack Parsons and the connection to the OCO and Aleister Crowley and all that.
Due for release? It hasn't been put out yet.
No, it's not been. It's going to be on television. It's going to be on HBO.
Okay. All right. So there we go. So, okay, just a couple, just because, we don't want to keep you over here too long, and just a couple quick things, though, just kind of jumping around a little bit here to kind of wind things down. Jim Keith, he was a good friend of yours, I guess, for many years. And he unfortunately passed away under tragic, very kind of, in some ways, odd circumstances. But was he not, this is the story that I've had kind of drawn to my attention, was he not, in fact, warned? At one point, he was, spouting all kinds of, conspiracy, sort of black helicopter theories and just his kind of whole spiel, and the shadow government and what have you. But he was in the presence of a Freemason, I guess, was the deal. And it might have been at a restaurant where the group, they gathered. There's a famous restaurant where even today they still gather. I'm not sure the exact location, but there's still these meetings are taking place. But he announced, he's talking, in a very loud voice, and the guy, I guess, overheard him, and he said, look, man, I hope you never end up in a hospital and find yourself under a Freemason's knife. Are you familiar with that? Are you know that story at all?
Keith never told me that story, but I have no problem believing it. If you deal with this kind of material, conspiracy material, I get threats all the time. The last time I saw Adam Parfrey, or actually the second to the last time, he visited St. Louis. He was giving a talk at some bar down in St. Louis. There was a Freemasonry was part of the talk, and actually a local lodge master showed up. I don't think he threatened him, but those people are always in the background, when you're dealing with this kind of material. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if like that was made.
It's like what was drawn to our listeners' attention just a short while earlier in the show here, that once again, one of the stipulations, requisites for promotion, the FBI under I'm not sure if it's changed since or not, probably to a certain degree, but with Hoover's reign, that you had to be a Freemason if you were expecting a promotion, period. So
now when he died, when Keith died, it was of a knee injury that he sustained at Burning Man.
Mm-hmm.
So unless they have, and I'm sure they do, Freemasons going to Burning Man.
Oh, they do. FBI is all over that. They've been there for years now. It's been reported and widely reported. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's really, really plausible.
Yeah.
It's really plausible. The guy that published, that did most of Jim Keith's publishing, Ron Bonds, who used to run a Legitimate Press, he died shortly thereafter too of Clostridium poisoning, and Keith had written Clostridium poisoning.
Yeah, same kind of deal. And May Brussel, add her to the list. And the whole the people like this investigative reporter Michael Hastings, quite not so long ago. Gary Webb, another kind of, that's some strange stuff going on there. 2 shots to the head.
Danny Castellero.
Danny Castellero, and I wanted to bring this up before we sign off here. Your friend and great companion of many years, Acharya S. She, I guess, passed away just this past year, I think. In fact, from breast cancer, was it? And so
Christmas of inflammatory breast cancer, one that didn't really have tumors.
It didn't have sorry?
It was a tumorless kind of breast cancer.
Isn't that something? Isn't that
And
something? Well, and she was then and the reason it's
there are
there's
no conspiracy theories involved with that. And there are, of course, coincidences and ironies. I mean, she died at Christmas, and her famous book was The Christ Conspiracy,
right.
trying to demonstrate the idea that Christ wasn't even wasn't a real figure.
Yeah.
And she was born on Easter,
Oh,
and she died at Christmas.
wow.
So she had it like the reverse of Christ, right?
She was an
For-
angel, though. I mean, she was a goddess.
She was her whole thesis was that all of these figures like Christ and the gods are all a reworking of the solar mythos of man making metaphors and stories about the solar cycle, and that's how I like to view her, as one of the kind of pure products of solar radiation to enlighten people.
Yeah. Well,
it's one of the great things. Chari and I hadn't been together for many years, but I did have one final conversation with her like a week before she died, and that was good. I guess I don't like to use the word closure, but one thing, there's this great photograph that I posted recently of Chari and I at the Integratron, out there near Joshua Tree. Do you know the Integratron?
Giant Rock?
Yeah, at Giant Rock. And we were there years before it was reopened to the public. We were just there by ourselves. There's this great photograph of us together. That's one of my best memories of her. And she was brilliant. There's no doubt about it. She was brilliant. She was beautiful, and she will be remembered a long, long time.
Are you able to make that photo available to the public, or is that a private thing? I'm not clear on where.
Posted recently. I'll be happy to repost.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. In fact,
we got here. I had this thing. I've been trying to. I've actually been kind of in semi-retirement, a little bit more than semi-retirement with Steam Shovel Press.
Yeah.
But I did finally produce a PDF tribute to Acharya S. that I've made available to people who want to contribute to the fund for her son. She had a little 12-year-old kid, 12 or 13 years old, and she's gone now, and that kid needs money. And anybody who writes me and tells me, and I will take their word on it, that they've submitted, any kind of money amount donation to acharya_s@yahoo.com. That's her PayPal account. Again, it's Acharya, ACHARYA_S@yahoo.com. Send some amount there. Tell me that you did it, and I will send you the PDF tribute to Acharya, which is kind of like almost a new issue of Steam Shovel. That's actually that's what I intended to do was take everything Acharya wrote for Steam Shovel and create an issue, but that didn't come about for many reasons we don't have time to talk about right now. But I do have the PDF tributes that that people wrote to her, photographs of her, all in a PDF to anybody who wants to contribute to her.
Are you do you manage that PayPal, or who's in charge? Who oversees things over there with that?
It's a friend of Acharya's. It goes directly to Acharya. When I first set it up, it was going to me, and then that became a hassle. Then I had to transfer it to this other person. But so now it's the person who runs her Facebook page.
Okay.
Which still exists, and under the name of DM Murdoch.
Right. Is this also the same woman who takes care of her custodianship, custody? Does this fall into her hands for the son? What is he now? He's still 12, 13?
12 or 13.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. Actually, like I said,
okay.
I had that one conversation with Acharya, but we hadn't been in communication for a while. I'm just doing what I can to help her kid.
We'd be more than happy, actually, Ken. What we're going to do here, we'll talk to the web, our webmaster, our web team. We got a couple people working behind the scenes there on that end of the operation, and we'll set up a direct button there for people. Then we'll try to help get the word out and make it known, and people hopefully be able to see it just like in the goodness of their hearts. A few dollars, supporters and fans of Acharya, and
Well,
her
that would be good.
her career and
If they
legacy.
let,
So yeah.
and if they let me know who did it, I'd be happy to send out the PDF.
Yeah, we'll put
Yeah.
your email. We'll make sure we get your email. We'll throw that in there and just kind of plug it in and make sure that they can access and get in touch with you easy enough. So, but just a couple quick things regarding this. Just in general, cancer as a weapon. It's been Jack Ruby, like ping.
Right.
Bill Hicks. What the hell? Come on! It's like
Yeah.
whoa. What kind? Whoa! That's the worst kind of cancer you can have. The what kind of what is that? That little gland that people have. I know somebody out there listening probably is like,
Uh,
it's
oh,
it's it's
cancer's a horrible,
it's
horrible
just
thing.
yeah. I'll add the little show note, I guess, but it's the worst kind of
Yeah.
cancer you can get. It attacks that damn little gland that we've got. You don't.
Well,
It's not.
I think
Yeah.
Acharya pursued alternative treatments to cancer. She didn't, go with chemo or anything like that.
Yeah.
I talk about it at length in the last blog post I did for steamshovel.press. So
I won't do chemo ever either. I've totally written out. I don't care if I die. It's like I won't do chemo because I've weighed both sides of the argument and the issue, and it's like from what I understand, chemo actually, people can feel free to do. It's your own life, people. You do what you want, but it makes apparently it actually makes the situation worse. We've got a friend here right now of the Korean friend of the wife here who's struggling with breast cancer and trying to come up with all kinds of treatments and approaches. Unfortunately, the evil weed is strictly verboten here in South Korea. North, you can smoke it freely, but we're led to believe that's a tyrannical regime. Yet, you can have as much pot as you want. So, but did she try the medical marijuana approach?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so. It was an alternative approach that she took. I had another friend who went through the same thing and at about the same time. And the thing about it, she did the medical marijuana business plus the chemo. So, and she had a longer life than they expected, probably by about a year, but would come away not knowing which of those therapies worked. So she did them both. I mean, there's no reason to the exclusion of another.
Well, one more time.
There's no reason to do one to the exclusion of another just to
Right.
prove a point.
Yeah.
Do anything you can to survive.
Yeah. Well, I guess, yeah, chalk it all up to science, I guess, just kind of testing things out and seeing how it all, everyone's different, I guess, too, the way that we're more susceptible or
What's
not. So.
interesting about science is that it doesn't really acknowledge death. Death doesn't exist, scientifically speaking. It's
really?
Summarized by Albert Einstein, that space and time have no separate existence from matter. Everything is just transforming itself from one thing into another.
Right.
But that's small comfort for anybody who's suffering, who's dying, or knows somebody who died.
Sure.
And it's still very sad all that happens. But the universe we live in is just one of continuous transformation. There's no death.
That's the karma, I guess. Well, no, the reincarnation is what you're talking about there. Yeah, karma would be and this is all Newtonian sort of physics too, which Newton was not the first one to come along with these insights. Maybe Einstein built on it, but it goes back to the Eastern traditions, I believe. So with that whole, for every action there's a reaction of equal yet opposite effect, like the laws of conservation of energy or something like that. But yeah, energy is neither created nor destroyed, but just is continually taking on a new form and shape. So, as William S. Burroughs put it, we're all here to go. So
Burroughs.
we didn't get. Speaking of which, we did not get a chance to get into Europa. We're gonna have to save that maybe for the behind-the-scenes kind of discussion that we're gonna embark upon here at the next stage of our journey. So, I think on that note, we've really covered a lot of ground here. I'm pretty happy with the way things have gone. No major. Once we got everything up in place and running, that everything seemed to just pretty much take care of itself. So, any final or closing comments, things that you'd like to add before we?
I'm sorry we didn't get to the question, what is parapolitics? That would have been interesting. And I'm sorry if we covered too many subjects in not too much depth. But I was happy to be here. I'm happy for people to listen. And keep an eye out for the stuff I'm working on, the Judge for Yourself book. I'm also trying to come up with a new edition of Popular Alienation, but maybe we can talk about all that more in the after show.
Your website address once again is
steamshovel.press.
Steamshovel.press. Yeah, I think I tried that in the lead up to the show. It wasn't working for me. We'll get on top of things here.
That's the problem. That's a long story about this guy who promised to help me get it done, and he's done a half-ass job of it, and that's why I don't like it. And we could talk more about that later. But sometimes it works. Maybe the best thing to do is just contact me directly.
Right.
K23@yahoo.com.
Okay, and I think another subject we might be kind of an area we might be diving into as well is the Parapolitical or Conspiracy Con that you proposed we maybe work together on getting off the ground here in Korea. So I've got a few thoughts on that.
That's absolutely needed in Korea. It's needed in America. It's needed everywhere. Conspiracy conferences don't happen that much anymore. There was a great with the rise of the internet. There was a great fall off on this kind of a thing, and we got to be activists about this. And my generation of conspiracy writers are dying or sick. Charya. We need new blood.
So I mean, I haven't left the country since 2007, the summer of that year. I went and toured Canada and had a great time, and I've never returned since, simply because I'm just not cool with traveling internationally anymore with the way that they've got these with the body scans and the biometric beast, as I like to refer to it. Even in Korea, you come and visit Korea, and this is the big thing I'll say, like people working on this, that all foreigners are fingerprinted here. It's like that's you're treated as a suspected criminal. So, and for me, that's just it crosses a line as a very libertarian leaning kind of apprentice sort of a pirate that just does not fly at all. So.
Happy to report that I just got back from Seattle, and there and back by way of Minneapolis there and by way of Phoenix back, and at no point did I have to take off my shoes. We've come that far.
Wow. Good. So things are well, and you look, you look at what's happened in the UK recently, and there's a lot of people that are kind of they've had enough in the US as well. So the change is in our midst, and in the on the winds. So maybe some as Leonard Cohen put it, democracy maybe really is coming to the USA. So on that note, though, Ken, thank you once again, and we'll talk. We'll meet up in the after show area, and
call me back.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. So there we go. Kenn Thomas from formerly of Steam Shovel Press, and he was a publisher and owner of that legendary underground alternative magazine. He was, just amazing. The books that he's put out over the years are just quite fantastic as well. We'll provide a whole list of those with bibliography and so forth in the show notes. We hopefully have got Pirate Larry here is stuck around. We're just going to kind of wind things down here with him. If I'm assuming he's been listening the whole time. Are you there?
Hi, Jeff. I've been here, and I'm waiting to go to the bar for the after show.
Yeah. Which bar is it today?
I don't think it's the Scurvy Dog. No, I don't think we're going there tonight.
Well, how about the Mossy Wench? The Mossy Wench Inn.
That's it. The Mossy Wench Inn.
She's a mossy one. That wench. So.
All right. We'll be over there for the after show.
And no Captain Sinclair. I'm not sure what's happened to him exactly, but it's kind of odd that he didn't show up over the course of our discussion. What did you think of things exactly? How do you think the show went today?
Well, I think it's a great show. There's a lot of detail, and there are a lot of things that people can follow based on where they're coming into the picture. The question is there a deep state? I think the answer is yes, there is, and we're seeing signs of it, and we have seen signs of it. So then the question is, well, what are you going to do about the deep state? And hopefully we'll be able to get into some of that on the after show.
Mm-hmm. Let's not forget to mention as well that we've got our first few couple official subscribers that we've managed to pick up here along the way the last week or so. So how about that? We got actually a little bit of a booty and coinage rolling into the treasure chest.
It is a great thing. It allows us to buy the ale at the local inn.
Also, AdSense, apparently, that's according to reports I'm hearing from, been handed to me here from other crew members, that we got that in place and up and running, so that's good. A number of things not fully functional at this point, but we're hoping that'll all change over time.
The Robin Hood runs on charity, and it also gives half to charity, so
that
should ease everybody's mind.
Yeah, and that's a key point. That's an important point to get out there and let the public know. Half of all the profit that is generated here on this end of things through with our operation is targeted for public redistribution to be handed back to worthy and charitable, noble causes. So yeah, but on that note, Larry, thank you for being a part of today's show. I think it's about time we called it a wrap.
Great. I'm glad to get down from the crow's nest. I'll see you at the Mossy Wench Inn.
Sounds good. Once again, that about does it for this episode of Pirate Radio Podcasts. Listeners can feel free to join us behind the scenes in Skype as we hold our feature content after show wrap-up. If you can't make it in person, another option is simply to download the recorded segment as part of our exclusive membership section. A whole $1.99 per episode, or, if you prefer, $5 per monthly subscription. With even just a few dollars from each listener, your support is what keeps the show running, so be sure to check out this special offer. Also, don't forget to be a part of things as we stream live every Friday night over YouTube and TuneIn.com, starting at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. on Saturdays in both Tokyo and Seoul. Feature shows we have coming up include next week's July 1st inaugural annual Global Marijuana Roundtable. We've got a few guests joining us from various places around the world, but we're still looking to lock down a couple choice seats, including regional representation from Africa, South America, and the Middle East. If you know of anyone you think would make a decent candidate, be sure to reach out and let us know. July 8th, we'll be playing host to Todd Ian McDougall from Winnipeg Alternative Media, Wham! Susan Mayer from Bye Bye Blue Skies will be coming on board July 17th for a chemtrail and geoengineering education and awareness special. Aaron Wadsworth will be our guest on July 23rd as we investigate the mysterious world of Korean shamanism. Finally, if you yourself have an idea for an upcoming show or a quality guest in mind, feel free to drop us a line. Not only can you find us via a quick web search over DuckDuckGo, PirateRadioPodcast.com, further contact information is easily available thanks to our web presence on multiple other social media outlets, including Podomatic, Facebook, Twitter, and Minds.com. So until we meet again out on the high digital seas, this has been episode 23 of Pirate Radio Podcasts. I am your host, as always, Ship's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder, signing off.